My name's Caleb Rourke, and I'm telling this from my cabin outside Darby, Montana, in the Bitterroot Range. It's late October 2024, and the cold has already settled in. I shouldn't be talking about this, but 7 years is a long time to carry something like this alone. Back in January of 2018, during that blizzard everyone around here remembers, I was still a ranger. Folks had been going missing for years, backpackers mostly, 1,000 over 7 seasons. People said weather, cliffs, bears. I told myself the same. I had to. But that night, I reviewed one of my trail cameras, the one up near Marble Creek, and the first thing I noticed wasn't the snow or the wind. It was the sound, a low, dragging scrape I can still hear in my sleep. Then the shape came into frame, and I knew instantly it was a Bigfoot, dragging a body into the trees. I still hear that scrape every winter. You can still hear the creak of my old porch swing under this recording. It's the same sound Marble Creek's ranger cabin made when the wind leaned on it just right. A long, tired groan. Back then, I was fresh off losing my wife to cancer, and work was the only quiet that didn't hurt. We'd had 3 backpackers go missing that month. Folks said cliffs, early snow, maybe a bear. Rumors swirled in the tavern, too. That Bigfoot talk again, the bartender would mutter at drunk hunters. I'd roll my eyes. I didn't believe in Bigfoot, didn't want to. I remember checking the locked maintenance shed, flashlight buzzing low. Everything ordinary, everything normal, except a faint, earthy smell near the tree line, wet fur mixed with pine sap. I told myself it was just elk. But as I walked back to the cabin, I heard 3 soft knocks far off, deep in the timber. I told myself it was wind again. That was late September 2014, in the Bitterroot Range, when dusk came early and the temperature dropped fast. The cabin sat a quarter mile from the trailhead, surrounded by lodgepole pine that creaked when storms rolled through. I'd been stationed there 4 months, mostly alone, logging permits and checking gear caches. The missing hikers bothered me more than I admitted. Young couples, solo backpackers, experienced climbers. They filed permits, then vanished. Search teams found nothing. No scent trails for dogs, no torn clothing, no blood, just empty forest. Marie Ortega, the other ranger assigned to the district, thought it was strange too. She'd mention it over coffee, voice low like the trees might hear. But we never said what we were really thinking. Couldn't. The smell near the tree line lingered. Heavy, humid. Animal, but not quite. I walked the perimeter twice that night, flashlight cutting thin lines through darkness. Nothing moved, but the air felt occupied. Inside, I made coffee and sat by the window. The 3 knocks echoed in my memory, steady and deliberate. Too rhythmic for branches, too distant for wildlife. I wrote in my logbook, routine patrol, no incidents. I should have written the truth. Most hikers come home with stories. These ones didn't. By the 10th missing person call that fall, even the sheriff stopped pretending it was normal. Radio chatter crackled. Another one from the South Spur, Caleb. Copy, logging it. I kept a notebook. Same pack route, same disappearances, same silence afterward. But folks around here love patterns, and they loved saying, "These mountains take what they want." One morning, Ranger Marie Ortega pointed at the mud near Hell's Ridge. "Prints," she said, "big ones, but not bear. You ever see anything like that?" I looked. Broad, human-shaped, too long. I laughed it off. "Let's not start the Bigfoot stuff, Marie." But later, alone, I kept remembering the same smell, that wet fur scent drifting on the cold. And that night, from my cabin window, I heard the 3 knocks again, a little closer. October brought the first snow, early and heavy. The missing person count climbed to 15. Families called the station daily, voices breaking, asking if we'd found anything new. We hadn't. Deputy Crowder drove up one afternoon, boots crunching gravel. He leaned against his cruiser, arms crossed. "People are talking, Caleb, saying something's hunting up here. People always talk. They're saying Bigfoot, I looked at him. He wasn't smiling. "That's nonsense," I said. He nodded slowly. "Course it is. But folks are scared. Keep it factual in your reports, yeah?" After he left, I walked the ridge trail Marie had mentioned. The prints were still there, partially filled with fresh snow. 17 inches long, 5 toes, deep impressions, like something tall and heavy had walked upright through soft ground. I knelt beside one. The edges were sharp, recent. I placed my boot next to it. My size 11 looked like a child's shoe. The wind picked up, carrying that smell again, musky, organic, wrong. I stood quickly, scanning the tree line. Nothing, just pines swaying, shadows shifting. That night, I locked every window. The 3 knocks came around midnight, sharp and clear, closer than before. I stood in the dark, heart hammering, listening. They stopped. Then, faint and distant, I heard something else. A low, rumbling vocalization. Not a bear's growl, not a wolf's howl, something between speech and animal sound. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I found a small stack of stones on my porch. 4 rocks, balanced carefully. I hadn't put them there. The one I still dream about was Lucas Bryant, 17. Good boots, good pack. Too much confidence. I checked his permit myself. He asked about wolves. I joked we didn't have many. He vanished 3 days later. Deputy Crowder blamed a storm. Marie blamed cliffs. Lucas's mother grabbed my hands and whispered, "Please find my boy." I told her I would. I meant it. We found nothing, not a scarf, not a boot print. One detail stuck with me. Near a ridge line, the trees carried that same smell, heavy, musky, like something tall had brushed past them. Crowder exhaled hard. "Don't start your Bigfoot ghost stories, Caleb." That word stung. I didn't believe in Bigfoot. Not then. But that night, when I stepped onto my porch, the knocks came again. 3 slow taps against wood, steady as a heartbeat. I tightened my grip on the railing. They were definitely closer this time. The search lasted 5 days. Volunteers from town, dogs, helicopters when weather allowed. We covered 40 square miles, every trail Lucas might have taken. His mother stayed at the station, pale and silent, drinking coffee she didn't taste. On the 3rd day, near the ridge where the smell had been strongest, I found something. A small clearing, completely empty except for a circle of disturbed ground. No tracks leading in or out. Just trampled earth, like something had stood there for hours. Marie walked the perimeter. "What do you think happened here?" "I don't know." But I did know. Something had waited in that clearing, something that didn't leave prints because it knew how not to. The dogs wouldn't enter. They whined, pulled back, refused commands. Their handler looked at me, confused. "Never seen them do this." I stepped into the center. The ground was still soft, recently disturbed. I knelt, touching the dirt, cold, damp, and that smell saturated into the earth itself. A branch snapped behind me. I spun. Nothing, just forest, silent and watching. That night, Lucas's mother left. We told her we'd keep searching. She didn't believe us. I saw it in her eyes, the moment she accepted her son was gone. I sat alone in the cabin, window open despite the cold, waiting. The 3 knocks came at 2 a.m., so close I could pinpoint the direction, 30 yards east, near the maintenance shed. I whispered into the darkness, "What do you want?" No answer, just the wind and the settling quiet of something choosing not to respond. Around that time, reports hit 20, then 30. The forest felt watched. Even the birds went quiet on certain ridges. One afternoon, I found a small stack of stones right where Lucas disappeared, balanced too neatly, not weather or hikers. A tall shadow seemed to move between the pines, but when I blinked, it was gone. Marie frowned. "You think someone's messing with us?" I wanted to say yes, wanted it to be human mischief. But the 3 knocks echoed again that night, bouncing between trees like someone signaling. This time, I smelled the fir scent first, heavy and humid. I wrote in my notebook, If someone is out there, they're getting closer. I hated the thought forming in my mind. Could it really be a Bigfoot? I closed the notebook. Couldn't let myself believe it. Not yet. But the knocks came again. August 2016 brought smoke from distant fires, turning sunsets orange and air thick. The missing person count reached 42. Families stopped asking questions. They just stared at maps, tracing trails their loved ones had walked. I started documenting everything. Photographs of stone stacks, recordings of strange sounds, measurements of prints that appeared and vanished overnight. My notebook filled with observations I couldn't explain. One entry read, 3 knocks, 11:47 p.m., same rhythm, eastern tree line. Responded by knocking back twice. Silence for 10 minutes. Then single knock, farther away. I was communicating with it, whatever it was. Marie noticed the change in me. "You're not sleeping," she said one morning. "Neither are you." She looked away. "I hear things at night. At my place, 20 miles from here. The same 3 knocks." We sat in silence, letting that settle. "You think it's following us?" I asked. "I think it knows who we are." That afternoon, we found fresh prints near the creek. 6 of them, spaced evenly, leading uphill toward the ridge. Marie measured one, 18 inches. We followed them for half a mile before they simply stopped at a rock face. No continuation, no return path, just 6 prints, then nothing. "How does something that size just disappear?" Marie whispered. I looked up. The cliff was sheer, 40 feet of granite. Impossible to climb without gear. But at the top, barely visible, a massive handprint pressed into the dirt. That night, the knocks came from 3 directions simultaneously. A triangle around my cabin, deliberate, coordinated. I understood then. I wasn't observing it anymore. It was observing me. The disappearances hit 50. Families camped outside the station demanding answers. We had none. Crowder slammed paperwork on the table. "It's cliffs, Caleb. Weather. Stupid mistakes. No Bigfoot, no monsters." I didn't argue. I couldn't. Because even thinking the word Bigfoot out loud made me feel foolish. But the evidence kept sliding in. Prints too long. Stone stacks appearing overnight. Trees bent in impossible arcs. Marie whispered over coffee, "You ever feel like something's warning us away?" Her voice trembled. That wasn't like her. I didn't answer. Outside the window, snow fell straight down, silent, heavy. But beneath it, faint as breathing, I heard that dragging sound, like something sliding weight across frozen ground. Crowder didn't hear it. He never did. I checked the locks twice that night. November brought cold that settled into bones and stayed. The ranger station became a place families avoided. Too many unanswered questions. Too much false hope. I attended a community meeting in town. 60 people packed into the community center, angry and scared. A woman stood, voice shaking. "My husband's been missing 3 months. You're telling me you found nothing? We're doing everything. You're doing nothing." She pointed at me. "People are saying there's something out there, something hunting. Why won't you admit it?" Crowder stood. "Ma'am, there's no evidence of predatory activity. The forest is dangerous. People make mistakes." "50 people?" someone shouted. 50 mistakes? The room erupted. I sat silent, hands folded, feeling the weight of what I knew and couldn't say. After the meeting, an old hunter approached me. "You know what's out there, don't you?" I met his eyes. "What do you think is out there?" "My grandfather saw one, 1952, up near the Canadian border. Said it was bigger than any man, gentle as a deer unless you threatened it. Said it spoke to him once, not words but meaning. He never went back to those woods." People don't believe those stories anymore. You believe them, Ranger. I can see it. He walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot, snow gathering on my shoulders. That night I reviewed my documentation. Months of evidence, prints, sounds, stone markers, territorial patterns. Everything pointed to intelligence, intention. And the knocks, always 3, always the same rhythm, A signature, a calling card. I wrote one sentence in my notebook. If this is Bigfoot, what does it want? The answer came at 3 a.m., a soft thud against my cabin door. I opened it slowly. On the porch, a woven basket, crude but functional, filled with pine cones and dried berries. A gift. My hands shook as I picked it up. The craftsmanship was simple but deliberate. Someone, something, had made this and left it for me. I searched the tree line with my flashlight. Nothing moved, but the smell hung in the air, thick and unmistakable. I whispered, "Thank you." The forest stayed quiet, listening. I installed trail cameras, cheap ones at first, then thermal, along the ridges where hikers disappeared. Each morning I checked them with shaking hands. One recording changed everything. A tree shook violently as if something massive brushed past. No bear walks that upright. No wind bends trunks like that. The audio caught a low, rumbling exhale, too deep to be human. I replayed it a dozen times, heart hammering. Marie watched over my shoulder. That, not a person. I swallowed. Could be distortion. But we both knew it wasn't. For the first time, I whispered the word out loud. Bigfoot. It tasted wrong. Heavy. Real. That night, the knocks came again. 3 sharp hits, firm and confident, like it knew I was listening. I turned off every light. May 2017 brought warm rain that pattered against the cabin's tin roof. I had 16 cameras positioned across the district now, each one angled toward game trails and disappearance sites. The footage accumulated slowly, shadows that moved wrong, heat signatures that appeared and vanished, audio of vocalizations that made my skin crawl, long, mournful calls that echoed through valleys. One clip showed a sapling bent completely over, tied into a knot 8 feet off the ground. No human could reach that high without a ladder. No animal would bother. Another showed a massive figure crossing a stream at dusk, upright, deliberate, gone in 3 seconds. I showed Marie both clips. She went pale. "That's not a bear," she said quietly. "No." "That's not a person." "No." We sat in silence, watching the clips loop. "If you say it's Bigfoot," she finally whispered, "they'll fire you. Call. You crazy. End your career." "I know, but you're going to say it anyway." I looked at her. "Wouldn't you? After everything we've seen?" She closed her eyes. "I don't know." That night, I made copies of every file, stored them on 3 separate drives, hid one under a floorboard, one in my truck's toolbox, one at my brother's house 2 states away. Evidence this important couldn't disappear. The knocks came earlier that night, just after sunset, while purple light still colored the sky. 3 firm impacts against a tree, maybe 40 yards out. I stepped onto the porch. "I see you now. I know what you are." A branch snapped. Close. Too close. I froze. The smell hit me. Wet fur, pine sap, earth. Overpowering. Right there, just beyond the tree line, something massive shifted weight. I heard it breathing, slow, controlled. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt recognized, acknowledged. "I won't hurt you," I whispered. The breathing continued for another minute. Then, slowly, deliberately, 3 soft knocks came from the darkness. Quieter this time, almost gentle. An answer. When I went inside and locked the door, my hands were steady. I'd made contact. Real contact. I wrote in my notebook, "It's aware of me. It knows I'm trying to understand. This isn't predation. This is something else. Something older. Something watching us as carefully as we watched it." By autumn, 80 more backpackers vanished. The forest felt claimed, owned by something unseen. I hiked Marble Creek with Marie, frost crunching under boots. Near the old lookout tower, the smell hit us, musky, wet fur, sweet rot, so strong it made Marie gag. "That's not elk," she whispered. Branches snapped far off. Something tall moved between trees. I raised my binoculars and saw only shadows. but the pine needles trembled in a perfect line, as if something was pacing carefully, deliberately. Marie grabbed my arm. "Caleb, don't say Bigfoot, please." But I was done lying to myself. I wrote in my notebook, "We're not alone out here, and it knows we know." That night, the knocks didn't come. The silence felt worse. October 2017 brought dead leaves and quiet ravens. The forest had changed, not in any way I could measure, but in feeling. The air sat heavier. Wildlife moved differently. Even experienced hunters mentioned it at the tavern. Something's off up there. The disappearances had patterns now. I'd mapped them all. Clusters around 3 main areas: Marble Creek, Hell's Ridge, and the old lookout tower. Each site had the same markers: stone stacks, bent trees, that pervasive smell. And each site had been visited by something that left 18-inch prints. Marie and I returned to the lookout tower one afternoon. The structure was abandoned, built in the 1940s, rotting now but still standing. The stairs groaned under our weight. From the top, we could see the entire valley, miles of unbroken forest, ridges layering into distance, mountains cutting the horizon. You could hide. "Anything out here," Marie said. "Or anyone." She looked at me. "You think they're still alive? The missing people?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. We found fresh prints at the tower's base on our way down. A complete set, circling the structure. Recent. The morning's frost hadn't touched them yet. Whatever made them had been here within the hour. Marie's radio crackled. "Dispatch to Ranger Ortega," she answered, voice tight. "Go ahead." "Another missing hiker. South Spur Trail. Gear found abandoned." We looked at each other. That made 83. The silence that night was absolute. No knocks, no sounds. The forest held its breath. I sat on my porch until 3 a.m., waiting. Nothing came. At dawn, I found a single footprint pressed into the dirt outside my door. 18 inches, 5 toes, fresh. It had been there, right there, while I sat 20 feet away, watching. I knelt beside the print, hands shaking. This close, I could see the detail. Dermal ridges, skin texture, the slight asymmetry of natural anatomy. Real. Unquestionably real. I looked toward the tree line. "Why won't you show yourself?" The forest stayed silent. But that evening, as sunset painted the mountains red, I heard something new. Not knocks, not vocalizations, footsteps, heavy, slow, circling my cabin at a distance, staying just out of sight. It was closer than it had ever been, and I understood. The silence hadn't been absence. It had been anticipation. This is the night that stuck to my bones. The storm rolled in so fast it erased the world. Whiteout conditions. No hikers should have been out there, yet someone had filed a permit earlier that morning. That night, around 1:14 a.m., the station lights flickered. The wind moaned through the cracks in the cabin walls. I reviewed trail cam feeds to pass time. Camera 4, Marble Creek, glitched, then stabilized, and I heard it. That dragging sound, the same low scrape I'd heard for years. When the figure stepped into frame, I stopped breathing. Tall, broad, moving with terrible purpose. A Bigfoot. No question, no legend, no rumor. And it was dragging a human body, a backpacker limp as cloth, across the snow. I froze. The wind outside stopped for a moment, like the storm itself was watching. January 12, 2018. The blizzard hit around 10 p.m., winds gusting to 60 miles per hour. I'd tried calling Marie, but the lines were down. Radio static filled the cabin. I wasn't supposed to be reviewing footage, just killing time until the storm passed. Camera 4's timestamp read 1:14:22. Snow obscured most of the frame, but the thermal overlay cut through. A massive heat signature moved from left to right, upright, 8 feet tall, maybe more. Shoulders 3 feet across, and behind it, dragged through snow, a smaller signature, human-sized, not moving. I leaned closer, breath fogging the screen. The figure was Bigfoot, no mistaking it now. Dense fur covering the body, moving with a gait that was neither human nor ape, but something between. Powerful, purposeful. The body it dragged left a dark trail in the snow. I rewound, watched again. The details were clearer on the second viewing. The Bigfoot's arm, massive, muscled, gripped the backpacker's jacket. The head turned once, scanning the area, before continuing into the tree line. 23 seconds of footage. Then the figure disappeared into the forest, dragging its burden. The wind picked up outside my cabin, shaking the walls. I sat frozen, hand on the keyboard, unable to process what I'd seen. This was evidence. Real evidence. But evidence of what? Predation? Scavenging? Something else? I saved the file immediately, made 3 copies, labeled it MC4HARM-ZO121114. Then I sat in the dark, listening to the storm, knowing everything had changed. The footage played in my mind on loop. The casual strength of the creature, the limp body, the purposeful movement toward the tree line. At 2:37 a.m., the power went out completely. The cabin plunged into darkness. I sat still, listening. The wind howled. Snow hammered the roof. But beneath that, faint and rhythmic, I heard them. 3 knocks. Distant but clear. Even in the storm, even with the wind screaming, the sound cut through. I whispered into the darkness. I saw you. The knocks stopped. The silence that followed was deeper than the storm, heavier than snow. Whatever was out there knew I'd seen it, knew I had proof, and it was deciding what to do about it. I leaned closer to the screen. The Bigfoot paused mid-frame. It looked not at the body, but toward the camera, as if sensing it. Then something strange happened. It raised one huge arm and made 3 slow knocks against a tree trunk beside it. Knock, knock, knock. The same rhythm I'd heard for years. Not a warning, a signal. I whispered, "Why? Why are you doing this?" Its shoulders rose and fell, almost like grief, like burden. Then it dragged the backpacker into the black tree line and disappeared as the blizzard swallowed everything. I sat still for 10 minutes, listening to the cabin's refrigerator hum, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear. I whispered the word again, softly. Bigfoot. Not in fear, in recognition. I replayed the footage 17 times that night. Each viewing revealed something new. The way the creature moved, not aggressive, not hunting, methodical, like work. The 3 knocks against the tree, delivered with the back of its knuckles, deliberate and measured. The exact pattern I'd been hearing for years. A signature, an announcement. This is me. This is what I do. The body it dragged was male, mid-20s, wearing a blue jacket. I checked the permit log. Ethan Morrison, filed 2 days prior. Solo hiker, experienced. He'd been missing 48 hours when this footage captured his final journey. I should have called the sheriff. Should have organized a search team. Should have done everything protocol demanded. Instead, I sat in the dark, watching the creature that people call Bigfoot carry a dead man into the forest, and I understood something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't the first time. This was routine. The way it moved. The efficiency of the action. This was a pattern repeated countless times. All those missing hikers. 83 people over 3 years. Not lost. Not victims of weather or falls or animal attacks. Collected. The blizzard continued through dawn. I didn't sleep. Just watched the footage loop, studying every frame. At 4:47 a.m., I heard the 3 knocks again. Closer this time. Right outside the cabin. I went to the window. Snow fell so thick I could barely see 10 feet. But there, at the edge of visibility, a massive shape stood between 2 pines, motionless, watching the cabin, watching me. We stayed like that for 5 minutes, me at the window, it in the storm, both of us knowing the secret had been shared. Then, slowly, it raised one arm and knocked 3 times against a tree trunk. The sound carried clearly despite the wind. I pressed my hand against the cold window glass. I understand. The shape tilted its head slightly, Then it turned and walked into the blizzard, disappearing in seconds. When dawn finally came, gray and exhausted, I found tracks circling the cabin. 18 inches long, deep in fresh snow. It had been there all night, keeping watch, making sure I understood what I'd witnessed, making sure I knew this was Bigfoot's work, Bigfoot's purpose. And now, that burden was mine to carry too. 2 days later, when the storm cleared, Marie and I hiked to the camera site. The cold bit hard. Every tree glittered with ice. We found drag marks across the clearing, straight, purposeful. No animal tracks, no boot prints, just the long, deep slide. Marie's face went pale. This was your Bigfoot from the footage. She said the word like it could bite her. Nearby, on a fallen log, sat a small woven basket, handmade, primitive, filled with berries frozen solid. A gift? A marker? A warning? I didn't touch it. I felt something watching. The wet fur smell drifted on the cold air again, slow, heavy. A presence. I whispered into the trees. I saw you. I know. The forest stayed silent, but the silence felt sad. January 14th, 2018. The temperature had dropped to 14 degrees. Our breath formed clouds that hung in still air. The drag marks were unmistakable. A body-sized impression carved through 2 feet of snow, leading from the camera's position toward a dense thicket of pine. Marie photographed everything. Her hands shook despite her gloves. "How far do you think it took him?" she asked. "I don't know." We followed the marks for a quarter mile. They led uphill, toward an area too steep and rocky for normal hiking. The drag marks ended at a cliff face where snow had been brushed aside, revealing a narrow opening in the rock. A cave. Marie stepped back. "We should call this in." "And tell them what?" She looked at me, eyes wide. "The truth. That Bigfoot is taking people." Hearing her say it, fully, without hesitation, made it real in a way the footage hadn't. "They won't believe us," I said quietly. "Then we make them believe." I knelt by the cave entrance. The smell was overwhelming here. That musky, organic scent multiplied tenfold. Old. Established. This had been used for a long time. Inside, barely visible in the dim light, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Clothing. Piled neatly. Jackets, boots, backpacks. Arranged with care. Not discarded. Organized. "Marie, look at this." She came closer, then gasped. Those are from the missing hikers." I recognized Lucas Bryant's red jacket, Ethan Morrison's blue one, dozens of others, sorted by type and size. This was Bigfoot's storage. Bigfoot's, what? Collection? Memorial? A sound echoed from deep within the cave. Low, mournful, not animal, not human. We backed away slowly. "It's in there," Marie whispered. "Yeah." We retreated down the hill, neither of us speaking until we reached the tree line. Marie stopped, breathing hard. "What is it doing, Caleb? Why is it taking them?" I looked back at the cave entrance, barely visible through the pines. "I don't know, but it's not random. It's organized, purposeful. Should we tell people about the cave?" I thought about the families, the grief, the not knowing. But I also thought about what would happen if people found this place. Hunters, curiosity seekers, violence. "Not yet," I said. Marie nodded slowly. "The Bigfoot, it left that basket for us." "I know, like a gift, like it wants us to understand." "Yeah." We hiked back in silence, carrying a secret that felt heavier than the snow. I showed the footage to Crowder. He stared for 10 seconds, jaw tight. "Caleb, delete it. You'll start a panic. People don't need Bigfoot hysteria. Those families deserve answers." He shook his head. "Answers? You think telling them a Bigfoot dragged their kids away will help?" He used the word mockingly, but I heard fear underneath. He made me promise to keep it quiet. I lied and said I would, but I kept the SD card in a tin box under a floorboard. For months, I woke to the 3 knocks in my dreams, not threatening, calling. February 2018. The sheriff's office smelled like burned coffee and old paperwork. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in sickly yellow. Crowder watched the footage 3 times without speaking. His jaw worked, muscles twitching. Finally, "Where'd you get this?" "Trail camera 4, Marble Creek." "And you're sure it's not doctored? No computer tricks?" "It's raw footage, unedited, time-stamped." He leaned back in his chair. "Even if this is real, and I'm not saying it is, what do you expect me to do? Investigate, search the area, tell the families." "Tell them what?" He stood abruptly. "Tell them Bigfoot is real and it's been taking people for years? You know what happens next, Caleb? Hunters. Hundreds of them. Flooding those mountains, shooting at shadows, getting lost themselves, creating more problems. So we do nothing? We keep people calm. We keep searching. We follow procedure." I felt anger building. "Procedure hasn't found a single person. Neither will this footage." He pointed at the screen. "This creates panic. This ends careers. Mine, yours, Marie's. What about the truth?" He laughed bitterly. "The truth? The truth is that mountains are dangerous and people die. That's the truth families can accept. Not this." I took the SD card and left. At home, I buried the tin box deeper, added a second copy in my truck's spare tire compartment. A third I mailed to my brother with instructions to keep it safe. No questions asked. The footage stayed hidden, but it lived in my head, playing constantly. That night, the 3 knocks came at 11:34 p.m. I didn't go to the window, just listened. After the 3rd knock, I heard something new. Footsteps, heavy, slow, circling, then soft as wind. "Caleb," my name, spoken in a voice like gravel and thunder. I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. The Bigfoot had spoken, had said my name. "I hear you," I called back. The footsteps stopped. Silence for a long moment. Then, 3 final knocks. Softer this time. An acknowledgement. A goodbye. When I checked the porch in the morning, I found another woven basket. This one filled with smooth river stones, each one carefully selected. A gift from something that knew my name. I sat on the porch steps, holding the basket, crying for the first time since my wife died. Not from fear, from the weight of carrying this alone, from knowing the truth and being unable to share it, from being recognized by something the world refused to believe existed. By fall, I resigned. 50 more were gone that summer. The forest felt heavier, like grieving its own secrets. I couldn't sleep, couldn't unsee the footage, couldn't leave families without closure. Marie hugged me on my last day. "You saw what you saw, Caleb. I believe you. I just wish the rest of them could." As I drove away, I saw a shape between the pines, tall, still, watching. No movement, just presence. I stopped the truck, rolled down the window. The breeze carried the familiar scent, wet fur and pine. A soft thud echoed from deep in the woods, 3 distant knocks. A goodbye, or a warning. I whispered back, "Bigfoot. I won't come looking again." 6 years later, I still have the footage, still haven't shown it. Families deserve answers, but that Bigfoot, the way it moved, the way it signaled, it wasn't hunting, it was working, collecting, bearing a burden none of us understand. Sometimes at night, when snow piles high against my porch, I hear it again. 3 slow knocks, carried over the ridgeline. I sit quietly, listening, respecting. I say the name softly now. Bigfoot. Not as a legend, not as a monster, but as something that once looked into a camera and chose not to harm me. I don't know what happened to those 1,000 backpackers, but I know what I saw, and I know the forest remembers every winter, every silence, every knock,